Episode commencing in 3, 2, 1. Episode initiated.
Welcome back, everyone, to Cosmic Crit. This is your host / GM, Patrick, here, and welcome to Crittercon 6. Crittercon, it sounds weird to say it, but we're all the way up to the confusing Roman numerals, or Crittercon 666, as it might be.
My favorite Final Fantasy, 6, yes.
Oh, yes. And returning to our pre-con interview hot seat once more is a friendly face, friend of the show, obviously, and our new ongoing managing creative director for Starfinder, Mr. Thurston Hillman. Thirsty.
Hello.
To Starfinder fans everywhere. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
It's been way too long. I know you, I just don't like as soon as you get into a new position being like, oh, you're going to have to come on the podcast now and talk about all the plans.
all the things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, but I think you were here for Crittercon 2, so 4 years ago. I guess that was 2019, now that I think about it. I said 2018 when we were talking earlier, but I believe that is correct, and you've been on the podcast before in interview form. Talk about Starfinder Society in years past, where you worked for a great deal of time developing the fun society scenarios. Well, welcome back once more, and thanks for talking to us about Crittercon for a little bit and about Starfinder a lot of it. I know you've had you've played with folks at a Crittercon before, and you've helped with the charity and the background. Just for folks listening out there who have heard us talk about our online Paizo authorized charity convention, but have never played it before, while you are listening to this, if you are listening to it the week that it comes out, there is still time to sign up and play online in our convention. In fact, I was talking to some of our con organizers and what have you, and they said there's a huge influx of people that sign up like day of and the day before, so don't feel bad about that. And there's spaces at most tables, including the larger con specials that you can only do at conventions, either in person or online. And our convention is at the end of the con cycle, so this is probably the last time you will get a chance to play. We're running the Starfinder Society special. Last time you'll get a chance to play this year. So if you haven't, or if you haven't GM'd it, there might be still space to GM as well. Join our Discord. Have you heard about Starfinder Society before, Thurston? It's pretty popular.
It's entirely new to me. I have no idea. Tell me all about it.
Well, you've had your head in a completely different headspace for about a year now, yeah?
It's okay. So it's actually been interesting. As I track my mental progress of like what the last few years have been. I started with Starfinder Society. I was the Starfinder Society developer for the first 3 seasons, which roughly equates to about 4 years, because the first season was like a double whammy sort of thing. And then time before that, because I was obviously working before the season released. All that being said, after that, we had some staffing changes in organized play, and I swapped over to sort of lead Pathfinder Society for a bit. They had some staff changeover. I jumped in to help out, having a bunch of experience. I came from Pathfinder Society before, Starfinder even existed. So I jumped in over there, helped out for a bit, and then we had some more staff changes, and I ended up moving into this kind of special division we were calling Digital Adventures. You might have seen like some of the one-shots that came out.
Very popular, yeah.
Yeah, previously those had been sort of a miscellaneous, like whatever developer was free got to handle them. And it was decided maybe we should have a dedicated person. And I became that dedicated person. I did the Pathfinder Society special and then 2 Starfinder one shots in that. And then at the same time, as I was doing that, I also pitched this crazy idea for a Scoured Stars book. So I ended up doing that.
So that was a possibility of what Cosmic Crit was going to be. I think we've talked about it on the podcast before, but when we were getting ready in 2017 to start recording episodes, I think Glass Cannon announced that they were going to have a Kickstarter and like potentially play Starfinder in the future and do the AP. And then like other podcasts popped up that wanted to do Dead Suns as well. So I was like, oh, maybe we should just do Starfinder Society instead and kind of play it like it's just a regular AP volume. And I was voted down by the players. They're like, no, we want one long continuous adventure. I was like, all right, but Starfinder Society looks pretty good.
Well, thank you for that.
Well, besides, you can have these one-off adventures that are kind of like the X-Files episodes that were not about aliens, the little side adventers. You had those main society story missions, the I guess, what do you call them? Do you call them the canon? No.
So metaplot was like a term we would end up using, which would be like related to the season. Yeah.
So you have those that work like your through thread for the seasons, and I was excited about potentially diving into those at the beginning of Starfinder, but like I said, they wanted to go the AP route instead, and now you don't have to choose. You can get Starfinder Society in hardcover form, which I'm very excited about owning. I don't know about other people. I've been waiting for it for a while. That's coming out soon, but
slightly delayed.
Well, comparatively soon. Yeah,
yes.
It's like one of the major next Adventure Path releases.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that? Like, how is it different than saying going and collecting all those individual adventures and just kind of, I don't know, kit bashing them or stapling them together?
So one of the cool things about my job that I really enjoy is that as I'm talking to you, I can just open this file on my other monitor and be like, oh, let me pull up some cool examples of this neat book that I have here, right?
Yeah, do you want to share your screen?
I can't show you those InDesign files. I'm sorry. Yeah. But what I can say is, so for those who aren't aware, Scoured Stars was the storyline of the first season of Starfinder Society. And that first season ended up going for 2 years because we realized, like, wow, we have a whole lot of story to tell. When we started Starfinder Society, we were only doing one scenario a month. A lot of things sort of like shifted. We jumped back to we jumped to 2 scenarios a month. We did all of this, all of this intense work, and it went over the course of 2 years. And that first season was, oh gosh, what was it, like 40 plus product? I think 42 different, scenarios, interactive specials, all that fun stuff. And it was a very coherent, story. What we were trying to do with it was to give people an introduction similar to an AP style, but through society play, where there would be one-offs, and then there'd be, kind of the X-Files alien episodes, or the, like Ghost in the Shell, the ones that weren't standalone. And we told a pretty epic story of what happened in the, what happened to the society that was lost in the Scoured Stars. And that was told over the course of several adventures. So one of the things that I've heard repeatedly is a lot of people really enjoyed that story arc. Anecdotally, and honestly, just a lot of data we analyzed was like a lot of people really like that, but a lot of people who maybe weren't involved with the org play program never got to experience it. Whereas a lot of people who, were involved in the org play program wanted to like get some revisions and like. So as I said before, my current job and my last position where I was in sort of digital adventures, I pitched this idea of, well, like, we want to do an adventure that maybe doesn't have the same burdensome footprint, I will say, as like doing a whole new AP. And by that, I mean, we don't have to contract new authors. We can actually take a bunch of art and like, but that being said, we can add in a whole bunch of new stuff. We can actually order a bunch of new art. If I have to say one thing is like one of the most exciting thing for me on this is that this product compiles 12 adventures. So 10 scenarios and 2 interactive specials into like a whole AP. Each of them now is 1 level of play. The interactives spread over 2 levels of play where you level up partway through, all meant for like single player content. So even those people who maybe couldn't participate in some of those earlier interactive specials where you needed a lot of tables, you can play it with just a table of like 4 of your friends. One of the selling points that I love about this product too is that like it's an AP you can complete in about 75 hours, and we know we have the data. People have done it. But it was an opportunity for us to go back and really look at it, and like honestly, for me to go back and look at it, because you know I had been sort of the creative lead on that entire story arc along with John Compton at the time, but like John was managing all of Society play. I was really the person who was locked in specifically on Starfinder. So you know, John would help out a lot. We would bounce ideas. We'd have a good thing, but I was the one who would go into sort of the nitty gritty and assign outlines and work with authors. So I had like a really good sense of what was going on and whatnot. So you know, after it happened, I kind of went on to, you know, do a couple more seasons of organized play, and then I went into digital adventures. But I always kind of wanted to go back to that story, so this was a fun way to do that. And yeah, so I ended up going back. This is like a 256 page hardcover book that has 12 distinct adventures. It has a toolbox of, you know, things that I think are just invaluable that we don't get to put in a lot of places. Like, hey, the Jinsels are bad guys. Maybe we should have like 3 or 4 pages that talks about just them and their society. Yeah. Oh, hey, there's a society in there called the Cryhome Freehold that shows up in a bunch of adventures. Let's look at them.
Not something there's page space for in just the society.
Absolutely. But it was also another good chance for us to go and really reevaluate some of those old adventures from where we had started. A good example of this is maps. This is also one of the first adventure, this is the first adventure path where it relies heavily on flip map products. Like the flip maps are printed in the book like they would be in a scenario. And so, you know, we have a lot of people who say like, oh, I'd rather have custom maps in an AP. But I hear a lot of GMs who are like, no, I'd rather have a flip map in the AP so that I don't have to, you know, sketch something out or whatnot. And I can just go out and buy it. Like that's one of the joys of Society play. And so what we ended up doing, which was, you know, really fun, was putting those in there, but also going like, hey, we had this weird janky Pathfinder flip map because, you know, we didn't actually have Starfinder flip maps yet. Maybe we could like swap that around, or hey, maybe we could use some flip tiles here for like, you know, replacing some of this out of date stuff. It was also an opportunity for us to go into those adventures and kind of cut them back from like the multi-level spreads and be like, no, the commencement's a first level adventure now. Like that's it. You play it first level, second level. Okay, follow that up with the first mandate. That's a second level adventure. Okay, it's everything scaled for second level. And people who've played those adventures are certainly going to go in and like see a lot of what was there. But this has also been a chance for us to go in and clear stuff up, you know, clear up a lot of storyline elements. One of the fun things for me doing this was, twofold. One, each one of those 12 adventures gets a half-page art piece. Like, not like a small little, like a half-pager full art piece. I'm looking at some of them right now, like, you know, First Mandate has Zoe Lawaziel Sebo and Iteration 177 hanging out.
It's another thing that doesn't show up in a lot of Society scenarios is like a page of art.
You don't get that like that full sort of scale. We also got some, you know, some beautiful pages on like, hey, here's just like a full page art piece on the Scoured Stars, like and what it looks like. Probably my favorite part of the book is sort of the appendices and like cover content, because that stuff is almost all new. And it's things like, hey, this adventure path doesn't use experience. It runs on milestone play, which is another big first for us. This is like you finish the first adventure, you level up. Here's how you give your players their rewards. Here's how like when they should level up their starships.
This sounds like you're giving into player demands. As a GM, it just sounds like you're giving them everything they want. Just did we level up? Yes, you did. You finished the adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And it's, you know, a lot of that finicky stuff where like, you know, I'll be honest. I've rarely played in campaigns where I have used experience. I just milestone level most of the time. That's my personal play style. But you know what? It was a case here where it made a lot of sense. Now, the other thing that's exciting is like, let us put in like whole new encounters.
Oh yeah.
Like we have, you know, looking at a lot of feedback, like, the Jinsels, they show up, you know, partway through, we don't get a lot. Okay, so we're going to give you a bit more content earlier on. We're going to have a bit more mysterious encounters. Oh, we're going to remind you that they're there in some of the later adventures. And then just like, like along with all of that, we just get a lot of content that's going to start seeding some of the future plot hooks in the setting too. So it's kind of it's kind of like an homage to people who've like played this and, you know, want this experience they've had on their shelves that they can pick up and read through and run it, hopefully, you know, run it for their friends. But it's also for people who want that like adventure experience, but maybe just want it to be fairly easy to run. Like one night of gaming is an adventure, realistically. Like you can extend it and you can, you know, do all of those things, but you know, these are smaller adventures. They're bite-sized. They're society-sized at the end of the day. Yeah, so I'm very excited. It's like I could go on about this for a long time just because I was so excited to do it. Like, you know, I think one of the first things I did when I came into this project was there was a piece of artwork that I really wasn't pleased with how it like came out with, and it was like one of the first things where I'm like, we're swapping that artwork out. It was like things like that where I just got to go in, or conversely, like, you know, this adventure like had a lot of problems. One of the greatest things was like, let me go through reviews and old forum posts and see where people were complaining about adventures and
fixing that.
Asterisks here. I'm sure there's going to be someone who's going to like listen to this podcast and come back a year from now and be like, well, actually, Thurston, I posted on December 31st, 2027, and you didn't change the thing. Look, I did my best.
You'll get it in the 10-year anniversary of the Scoured Stars. That's down the line.
Oh, yeah. So no, it's honestly a really exciting project, and it's you know, after Ports of Call, which is coming out, it's like, you know, it's our next big adventure path now that Drift Hackers is done. And some change for us.
Some people, not me, were not excited about their kind of replacing in the schedule regularly scheduled adventure paths coming out, but I like having options for like hardcovers. I understand replacing the schedule is one thing, but like the way that they're doing it with the Pathfinder books, I'm very excited about. Those were some of my favorites. It's how I played in first edition Rise of the Rune Lords. I had the hardcover edition, and it was just one of my favorite books Paizo's ever published. So I'm excited. Are we going to see more collected volumes kind of like this for other APs or for other society seasons, do you think? I know it's very far away, potentially.
Society seasons is something we've talked about internally. There's been a lot of like, I'd love to see that Datch storyline kind of all brought together for year 2 and some other things. Whether or not we're going to do those is obviously going to depend on like how successful is this product, but also, you know, I would say stay tuned and show up at our PaizoCon, the Secrets of the Pact Worlds thing. You know, last year at the end of PaizoCon, and I may have regretted it, but like we teased an adventure path, and maybe we'll have more to talk about that adventure path this year.
All right.
But like,
how dare you save all your secrets for PaizoCon and Gen Con and not Crittercon? The start of the season.
Look, I can give you more on other products that we've already announced. I swear, I've got all sorts of things to talk about with other products.
Well, I actually haven't gotten a chance to dive in. I know it's coming out very soon for folks, but Port of Call, Starfinder's next. Well, it's been teased a lot, and a lot of things have already been kind of shown off in various places. But I'm very excited about. Is it Galarian World?
Galarian World. You know, everyone who hears about that book immediately brings up Galarian World. I think it's going to be popular.
Well, the people that have contributed to it have been talking about it online a good deal. So I'm very excited to see what is in the book. But yeah, what can you tell us about?
Yeah, so Ports of Call is a very interesting product because it fills a niche of like just building up a lot of our setting, right? Giving people like places to go is one big aspect, but it also serves a couple of other things. And once again, I'm invoking my dark powers of being able to load the PDFs in front of me.
Well, that one's coming out. That's like the next Starfinder release, right?
It is next month, I believe. Yeah. There's a couple things in here that are just so exciting for me for a lot of reasons. But one of them is we have like the intro of this book talks about the galaxy. Like, you know, we learn about Desna's path, which is, you know, our galaxy for Starfinder. And I think our lovely marketing folks teased a picture of the actual galaxy map, which is shown up. Now, that map also appears as a poster map in the back of this book that is marked out. And one of the reasons that it's marked out and has like different, sectors of space and primarily planets, like every place that's in here has its planet sort of marked down. But one of the exciting things is as we follow up from the Drift Crisis event, we've also got drift lanes that have now appeared, which are these like connecting points between empires or, between civilizations and star systems.
That are sort of tunnels between locations. It's an interesting idea. I saw when that was announced, and it makes sense that you would have to have kind of like a physical map potentially for people to plot out their own adventures soon.
Yeah, and like one of the things about how the drift works in Starfinder is it's one of those things where it's actually nebulous at best to chart out anything, because like you could have
travel at the speed of plot, right?
Well, you could have a planet that's actually like right next to you that's technically in the vast, and you could have a planet that's like way further away from you that's in near space because of how drift beacons work. I know I'm going extra nerdy lore here, but one of the things is that when you put a map in front of people and just like at the edges of the system are these things, like, there's a big chunk of the galaxy that's just marked out as swarm space, hey. But then we got to introduce these drift lanes, and what these are really exciting for the team because they let us tell some stories, and they give us some ability to deal with a lot of things we were having problems with. Like, rules as written before the Drift Crisis, piracy was actually like kind of hard to do effectively. And so the drift lanes give us an interesting way of exploring that a bit more. One of the things that I'm really excited about drift lanes, especially when you look at the map of how they sort of intersect and whatnot, there are 4 distinct drift lanes that go through the Veskarium. And that to me is like, and one of those crosses through Aslanti space. And that's one of those things of like, how's that gonna play out? And like just a lot of interesting elements that we can now explore
in future plot lines and what have you. Yes, I can understand. That was the first thing that popped in my brain with these drift lanes. Is like, oh well, someone's going to block them up and use them for tolls or piracy or something along those lines, which is great.
And that's just one thing in Ports of Call. Like, there's so much else. Like, we get several new species in Ports of Call.
Yeah.
Here's a funny thing. We talked about the Scoured Stars just before this. One is Zadamar is a settlement. It's a Port of Call that's in this book that is in the Scoured Stars, and we get to see what's happened after the events of the adventure path and like what's going on there. One of the playable species that's in this book is the Thier, which are like a gaseous people who are introduced in the Scoured Stars storyline. So we have all of these tie-in options, and then we certainly have Galarian World, and then we have Shulgi Station and Outpost Z for some of those of you who have followed some of the other APs. And then we've
been there, done that.
Yeah, but like what's going on there now? And then we also have some interesting other elements in here, like a cargo system or contracts, which you might recognize from Ports of Call, that we get to sort of codify a bit more into a hardback book for maybe someone who's not playing that adventure path.
Right. The Live Free or Die.
Or Fly Free or Die. Yeah.
Fly Free or Die. Yeah. Well, that makes sense to put that in that book. I'm very excited about that one as well. Yeah. The announcement this year that's rocked a lot of people, though, and probably people wanted me to ask you about the most is
absolutely
Enhanced. Starfinder Enhanced. Something that, people have probably been way too impatient to get to in a Starfinder lineup. I don't know. For me, Starfinder still feels like it was yesterday when it was announced. But what can you tell us about this book? It's not out for another 6 months or so at this point, I think. But obviously, a good amount of the book is done, right? You've got all the InDesign.
Got the files right in front of
They're all completed in front of you. Yeah.
But maybe they need an editor. Our editors are great, and yay. But I'll tell you, okay, so we have a panel at PaizoCon, so I can't. No, of course I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Starfinder Enhanced is a book that, like, we had a lot of meetings. This was prior to me becoming managing creative director. So this book was, in the pipe before I sort of took over the team. But this was one I pushed for a lot personally, because I believe that one of the places Starfinder really needed a bit of an oomph was in the mechanics section. Just because, we have a lot of really good books, but a lot of the mechanics are spread out through them. A lot of them become very specific, and that's good. That gives a lot of what I'll say, like, breadth to the setting, where it's like the setting feels alive, like the number of species we have, all of these things. But one problem I've noticed in my play is just like a bit of the depth. I feel like I want more depth in the game on a mechanical level. So Starfinder Enhanced was concepted as, like, in some ways Calm 2 Electric Boogaloo, where we might be able to do a bit more rules. But then we ended up looking at a lot of other elements and ways we could go. There's a couple things in here that really excite me. We've announced that we're going to have 4 enhanced versions of existing classes. So that's the Enhanced Envoy, the Solarian, the Technomancer, and the Witch Warper. Those are... people have been asking, what does that mean? Well, you'll see in the book, but it is a case of these classes aren't just, we aren't just like going to reprint the class, so to speak. We aren't just going to like make it and change it. What we're going to do is we're going to provide people with intro, like, I think it's about 2 or 4 pages for each of the enhanced classes. That is, a bit of a new, like, level progression and maybe some new abilities that are associated with them. And a lot of this is not purely based on power level. It's based on gameplay experience. A lot of people have brought to my attention but Thirsty, operatives are so OP. You should nerf operatives. And I am of a different opinion. And I think that, well, if people enjoy playing operatives, why don't we have other classes that can perform on a similar scale and feel enjoyable doing it? And so what we looked at for a lot of these was classes where there were, maybe play experiences that just didn't feel good at the table. I run a lot of home campaigns. I'm gonna give you your first spoiler, because I get to do this now. Like, no one can stop me. I'm mad with power. But, like, one of the problems I've had in my home campaigns, and I've kind of like house ruled, because that's what I do for my home games, is like the Envoy, for example. I found that with the Envoy, it's a really fun class. You get to buff, but oftentimes your buffing comes at the expense of you feeling like you get to do something cool. So one of the second level ability that the Enhanced Envoy gets is something called Inspiring Combo, which is, as a full action, you can make a single attack and use one Envoy improvisation, so that you can do something and also help your friends, so that you aren't just sacrificing your action to, make someone else better. You're helping them, but also you're taking a shot with your laser pistol. Because Han Solo shot with a laser pistol while he was, talking to his friends, right? Like,
while making quips, yes, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And so that, like, that's one example, and there are certainly more for each of the classes. Another one that I've had I take full responsibility for this one, by the way, is the Witch Warper. I gave some feedback during the playtest that maybe got the Witch Warper a bit overtuned. So I had a personal crusade of we should look at the Witch Warper again, and maybe take a look at how Infinite Worlds works, and make sure that everything isn't, say, based off of your spell slots that are your only per cool things at first level. Like, things like that, where there were just like play experiences where it didn't necessarily feel great, or where we could just improve how play was. I'm really excited for it, honestly. I think just for that alone, the book has me excited for a lot of those classes. Not to mention that, like, as I'm going through, these enhanced classes are sprinkled in with all the other classes. Like, here's 4 new pages of Vanguard abilities. Here's like,
so we're getting, are we getting all the classes having some new
every class
items? All right, so this is definitely Calm 2.0, right?
To give you an idea, the class section is about 82 pages. Sorry, not 82 pages. My bad. About 56 pages of the book is
still like everyone's getting about 4 pages. That's a lot. That's a chunk of that book.
Then we still have species, we have themes in here, and then we dive into some areas that I think are really important for the game too. Archetypes, like archetypes is one of those things where I just feel the more we can do, the better. But really, this is like closest to my heart. But feats. I think I put in the description of this book for the product page. There's over, I think, 90 feats in this book.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
This is a toolbox. This is a thing for players who have wanted to do all of this. And spells and creature companions and like the product page when it says and much more is not lying for this book. There is a lot in here.
I'll say.
But then there is, but wait, there's more. This book also has rules for scaling equipment so that you can have that gun with you through the whole campaign and not have to constantly like swap out your guns. That's something the team also feels real strongly about, that we want to have better options for like, my family gun, I'm tossing it away because I need to buy the next best thing.
Well, it's basically something we've homebrewed with people's like personal weapons on Cosmic Crit, of course. But I was getting ready to write literal homebrew rules for season 5, spoilers for our upcoming season. But as soon as I put pen to paper, I think you guys announced Enhanced. I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to let the professionals do it now. But yeah, that is something that seems like because there are levels to weapons already and like different levels of the same weapon class, would be easy to kind of like slot in. Can you tell us a little bit about that system?
I sure can. I can tell you right off the bat that it's about 8 pages. That's me stalling as the file loads. But no. And it's got really cool art. But no, it goes into, what is the scaling cost for these? What is the upgrade between levels? So it provides all of that math for you. Like it does it with armor as well. So, do you want to have your armor? This is what like a baseline heavy armor might look like. This is, a baseline light armor. Okay, what's the weapon progression based off of? It's very mechanical, but it's mechanical because it's meant to let you kind of create your custom thing that you want.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I'm so excited about it. Was there at any point, I know you said this is before you kind of stepped into your current position, was there any point that this was going to be called like a Character Operations Manual 2 or something like that? Or is it always Starfinder Enhanced?
Actually, finding a name for this was a tricky proposition, and we went through a few things, but Starfinder Enhanced just, had that cuteness of like, enhance, which, funny joke. But also, it kind of came more into focus once we hit the other part of the book that I haven't even mentioned on. Like, we have the enhanced classes, certainly, and a whole bunch of new character options and all of those things, which is very common. But there is still
Starship Combat, too.
Other rules, which includes 3 main points in the other rules section, which all of them are things that like sing to me. The first off is a narrative starship combat. So for those people who don't want the high-end tactical, maybe they just want to roll some skill checks. We have that in here.
Not fun people in my book. People that don't like fun technical combats. It was the thing I was most excited about when I got the Starfinder core rulebook. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a mini tactical game within your role-playing game, which I thought it got stuff like Star Trek and Star Wars so right with like the shields, but I understand you don't always want to play that combat out. So, and some of the APs have had like more story-driven starship encounters, I guess, not combats with ships, but like, you're going through an asteroid field, and people really enjoyed those. They like the feeling of being at the con, but not necessarily only having to shoot or balance the shields,
Absolutely. So this is just an opportunity for us to give some rules for maybe those people who don't want to run the crunchier starship combats. That that was one thing we wanted to put in. GM Tools is a section for me that is great because it does one important thing. It reevaluates high level skill DCs, which has always been a bit of a tricky widget for us.
Right.
Specifically, I'll tell you straight up, people who have used the skill DC scaling for like what's the difficulty of a skill check at level 15, the math in our core rule book might not be the best to use for that. And so we take a look at that here and go a bit more in depth. And finally, a thing that I once again was like, just oh gosh, can we do this in this book? And then Joe Piscini, who was the lead developer, was like, yes we can. And then I think Jessica Catalan, who's the Starfinder Society lead right now, she wrote it. But generic uses for resolve points for all classes.
Ooh, that's exciting.
It is very exciting because it allows us to fix a bit of disparity, I would say, that existed between how some of the classes interact with resolve points, but also lets us do some fun things like, hey, spend a resolve point when you're casting a spell to increase the save DC of that spell.
Wow. You went there. Yeah. All the caster mains are very excited for
absolutely.
Well, you have a whole system in Pathfinder 2nd Edition with like hero points and stuff. They don't have resolve in the base rules, but they have another system that augments play that everyone has access to. It makes sense that there'd be some more options for a limited resource that every player has, this pool. Players love my players, the podcast peoples love expending their RP if they know they're going to affect the combat or do something cool. So
I think it's important because we also have a couple classes that currently don't interact well with resolve points. There's a couple of them, like the biohacker is an example I use a lot. It doesn't actually innately have anything that uses resolve points, and so they can just sit on their resolve point pool and use them for stamina healing, and then if they get knocked down, But now, what if I were to tell you could, when you roll initiative, spend a number of resolve points equal to 1/4 of your maximum total of resolve points, minimum 1, max 3, and maybe for the rest of that combat you crit on 19s and 20s. There could be some things where we might be spicing it up and getting people to spend their resolve points.
Yeah, we've house ruled that already on Cosmic Crit. We call those super hits.
Yeah, and so
19s. Woo.
We have some fun stuff in there, and like spellcasters certainly are going to get some. One of the ones I also think that is like probably the most exciting. This is the last resolve point thing I'm giving you. This is the last freebie.
Just read the entire chapter.
Just the whole section. But one of them is one of the things we have in our game that's fun, but also like a bit clunky for people is when you have like multiple crit effects on an ability where it's like, oh, you have to pick one. What if I told you could apply 2 if you spent a resolve point? Like there's some
changes builds and how you're picking your fusions.
And with some of the changes we've recently made in errata to fusions, which was a big decision the team kind of unanimously agreed on when we were looking at it of, hey, maybe it shouldn't take forever to slap these things on. Yeah, it creates some very interesting dynamics here. So
awesome. But I asked before about the title for the book because obviously as soon as the news broke that it was coming out, people compared it to Pathfinder First Edition's Unchained.
Unchained, yep.
Is in the same kind of naming territory. So people were like, oh, well, this is going to be very similar to that book, which also had class updates for 4 classes as well in Pathfinder First Edition, right? Rogue and I forget the other ones. Rogue was the big
Summoner. Summoner is the one I always remember. I have Org play flashbacks.
I was about to say, I remember Rogues being very popular with their changes. But yeah, that was what a lot of people felt like a testing ground for like where are we going for a Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And that came out like 4 years before Pathfinder 2nd Edition came out. So does that mean we're on a countdown until 2027 for Starfinder?
Smart journalism,
which would also be
10-year
anniversary for Starfinder. What a perfect time, right?
All right. What I'll say is that this book does not quite have what Unchained had. Unchained had a lot of experimental systems that you actually see like similar in like the Pathfinder GMG right now for 2nd edition with, like different ability score methods. And a lot of that was in the old Unchained, different monster creation rules. Enhanced doesn't really have a lot. Enhanced is almost entirely player focused content. So we aren't giving your game new subsystems beyond what I mentioned with the narrative starship combat. Everything else in this book is generally speaking geared to new options for your player.
Right.
So, whilst it's not called Com 2, and one of the reasons we aren't calling it Com 2 is if you put 2 at the end of any book, it doesn't sell as well and it's not quite as sexy.
Well, it doesn't sound it doesn't sound like it is just a sequel to the first COM, despite having those many player options. But people love that first character operation manual because of how it changed up those base classes and systems and things like that.
And so I will like alleviate the concerns of like they're testing out stuff. This book is not us testing out stuff for second edition, y'all. I'm just gonna toss that out there. Like, don't worry. That is not the purpose of this book. The purpose of this book is for people who are really into Starfinder and really want to enhance their game for their players specific. But there's also a lot of GM content in here because anything you're throwing to the players, the GM gets to play with too. And also, there's narrative starship combat, those, in those maybe better DC scalings, like all of those are great GM tools. So I'd say that this book is primarily focused to players, but it really works for GMs. Like this is kind of a book I've been so excited for all my home games to get.
As a GM, can I just give X amount of RP to all of my minions and allow them to use these same RP rules? Oh, I
mean, technically, some creatures have RP built in.
Oh, yes, I know. I know for a fact. Oh boy, I'm very excited about. I mean, obviously, I think that is so far away, but it's going to be here before you know it.
And we're going to dive into it more at PaizoCon. This is definitely a panel we're going to have at PaizoCon where we're going to talk a bit more about this book. Even though it's far off, we want to make sure that people can get a bit of a sense of where this book is going.
In the fall, we got to wait for the fall, correct? For enhanced.
Yeah, I believe it comes out in October technically, and sadly, like a lot of the delays on the Starfinder side have just been due to a variety of things. Certainly, like team shuffling is factored into that, shipping stuff, making sure we have enough artists and editors in our house to get all these books we're putting out there looked at. Because it's not just, at the end of the day, it's not just the developers. There's a whole like bunch of different teams that look at these books. So
right. Well, yeah, season 5 will have a ton of enhanced stuff. Like, I'm not going to be able to keep my players away from it. Like, the second we get our grubby mitts on it, it's going to appear on the podcast when those episodes would come out after it releases. We're not going to be spoiling anything for our fans, but they're going to be, like I said, chomping at the bit for some of those rule changes, like our listeners are, I'm sure.
I can't spoil the whole book. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. I'll spoil the Novians though, because we showed a picture of them.
Oh boy, they're adorable.
In our blog. Oh boy, they're adorable. And you too can be a tiny outsider that represents a little just dead sun and, have an ability called Micronova. It's going to be cool. It's going to be fun.
I mean, you got to play a Solarian Novian who's got like a little miniature glowing Novian over their shoulder like a angel or devil. That's the first character I'm making for sure.
I might, go out of my way and make a hologram.
Yeah, a hologram of your character?
I mean, this new species we have called hologram would be pretty cool to play.
Yes.
And one other thing that I think we've mentioned before, but just so people out there are listening, there were several species that we first introduced through the alien deck that we released. I am trying to remember the specific name of it. I am a terrible character deck. Yeah, alien character deck. That included some choices like Knowles, Grippleys. All of those are reprinted in this book as well, so that you kind of have access to that, as well as some fan favorites from APs. Like this isn't new content per se, but it's us putting it in a place that might be a bit more accessible for some of our fans.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, people love those new playable species options in any book that they can get access to, whether it be Alien Archives or books like these. So that's one of the first things I thumb through all new Starfinder publications for. It's like, what weird thing are you going to be able to play next? And so one of the reasons I didn't like second edition's handling of ancestries as much, because I was like, they're not going to be able to print as many of these as Starfinder has done. But then I've been proven pretty wrong, because I mean, they're already at like 50 or something ancestries and going strong.
I would also say too, one of the things that first edition Starfinder versus second edition Pathfinder has in their life cycles is Starfinder has been just working so much ground on like introducing species. Like a lot of like, you know, we can fit a new species on one page, whereas an ancestry takes up several pages in 2E. But, you know, a lot of what we've been doing with Starfinder is just introducing species. I've been saying for a while, I'd love for us, you know, interstellar species was a great starting point of us being able to dig into some of these existing species that we have. Like, it's a walrus person who gets like a page of text to it. Wouldn't it be cool if we could do like 8 pages and get into their society and give them, you know, unique abilities and all those sorts of things? I think there's some interesting play of us like eventually going down that route in terms of giving our species more now that we've just created so many of them.
Yeah, I've lost track, but there are people that wiki these things online who have the full count. I mean, it's like 130 something or something insane at this point.
Oh gosh, I might have a spreadsheet for that.
Yeah, I was about to say, scroll down the Excel document to get them all. But then you have like some that have like multiple dichotomies, you know, like Lashunta. Are you going to count those?
102 is one of my counts, but that doesn't quite include every absolute one from some back matter and some other miscellaneous ones. But like, yeah, last I did a count from books and AP back matter were at about 102. It's like, you know, literally I went through recently alien archive creatures just as, you know, part of my I'm starting up. I want to have some databases for this that's not just like pulling from archives of Nethys. And it's like we have over 750 unique creatures. Like that's a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean 6 years of content, and you guys have been doing such a great job at getting it consistently a new alien species or monster like a day, it seems like, since or at the very least per week since the game has launched. I'm super excited for a ton of stuff. Season 5 of Cosmic Crit is launching, I think, like only 10 days or so after this episode drops. So we've been hyping it up for a long time. And I've been sitting on secrets for it for over a year since I started planning it out. And now I know what you feel like in getting these AP books and Starfinder Society stories ready so far in advance, and then having to wait a long time for folks to get a chance to sit down and experience them. It's not fun. Thirsty. It's not fun at all.
It's a balancing act. It's always fun to, you know, kind of bite your tongue and go, oh, if only I could say something here. But yeah, no, I hear you. It's one of the things.
Yeah, we have way too smart folks in our Discord alone, let alone the greater Paizo community at guessing at secrets.
yeah. Like it's funny because you'll just someone will catch on like a way someone said something or whatnot, and suddenly it'll be like, aha, they're doing XYZ, and it's like no.
So many. Sherlock Holmes out there. Yes, indeed.
Oh, yes.
Well, watch what you say at PaizoCon. Watch what secrets you let slip. And then at Gen Con, you got the con season upon us very soon.
We have big announcements at both. I will say one of the weird parts is that I kind of go on my online tour of like, we have big news. It's coming. Don't worry. There is some really good Starfinder news coming. But
on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you put Starfinder Enhanced? Because you've been obviously keeping that secret for a long time. Where would you rate that as far as like small news versus big news? Because for me, that's like a 9. There's stuff that can surpass it, but that's pretty high up there as far as Starfinder news, I would categorize, and people's reaction as well.
I think it's a solid like 7.58 for me. I think it's a spicy book. I think it's going to get a lot. I think some of the news we have coming is really gonna like throw people for a loop and have them go, oh yeah, of course. And some of the projects that we just have on the go, I'm currently wrangling multiple Starfinder projects right now. So when we're talking about things, there's just ways and ways off, and I have freelancers who are like biting their tongues wanting to talk about things we haven't announced yet.
Yeah, you can tell on Twitter once something is finally announced, they're like, oh, thank goodness
I can talk about this.
I wrote so much of this so long ago.
Yes. But conversely, one of the reasons we haven't quite like been bombarding with a lot of announcements is we took some of this, like, some of the delay time with some of these products to really sit down as a team. The team has had undergone a lot of change right now, and I should give a shout out here to like the current Starfinder team. It's myself, senior developer Jenny Jarzabski, who took over Starfinder Society when I moved on.
Yep.
And then recently we hired Dustin Knight as a developer. Dustin's been really active in the community and was heavily involved with the Pathfinder and Starfinder Infinite programs. Dustin brings like a very good view to the game and to the setting, a lot of knowledge there. Jenny has written so many things for our game. I don't even need to talk about how awesome she is. And then we also have Jessica Catalan, who is it's not one of my direct underlings. She reports to Linda Zayas Palmer and the narrative side of our house, but she's for all intents and purposes a member of the Starfinder team, working on Starfinder Society. We've been really sitting down these past few months and really digging into the Starfinder and what's going to be good for the brand. What do people want to see? What has worked in the past? What hasn't worked in the past? I think with Starfinder, there's certainly been a lot of like momentum of like, let's jump to the next crazy idea. We've been taking a bit of time now to sort of sit down and really analyze, where are people enjoying the setting? Where can we improve on the setting? Where can we, like what products do people want to see? And we're taking a lot of time so that we can deliver on some big promises, and deliver some like rockin' products. Like some of the meetings I have had these past 2 months have been some of the most fulfilling in my creative career about just directions for Starfinder.
And I mean, that's a lot of hype for something like, you're obviously preaching to the choir. Just about every single year of Starfinder, I feel like you guys have answered the fans' demands, not their suggestions, their demands. Like, we need this kind of AP. We need this kind of GM book, or, like supplemental rules book. And it came out like the the following year. Every time someone suggested something along those lines, we need a book dedicated to the Vescarium. And then it just shows up on my doorstep about 6 months later. So are you similarly reacting to what folks are putting out there in the ether? Do you think people will have called for or demanded some of the upcoming Starfinder stuff, or are they truly going to be surprised?
I think there'll be some surprises coming fairly soon, and I think some people go, "Oh, that makes sense." I also think there'll be some people who, to go back to your statement on the voices in the ether, so to speak, that there's a fine line. I come from an organized play background. I come from really interacting with the community. You'll see me in Discords. I'll be in the Starfinder Discord and I'll be chatting with people, on my morning when I come into work, or making some cute joke about some new announcement or whatnot. Or on our forums, or, checking out Reddit, Hi Starfinder Reddit. But all of these things,
we don't talk about those people. The subreddit folk.
Yeah,
we're Discord folk on this podcast.
That's right. But really, there's a balance, because a lot of the people who are in those groups are some of our most dedicated fans. A great example here is the sheer number of people I hear clamoring for like a high-level adventure path. And we have to be really, really, really careful about doing things like that. And I'm not saying like high-level adventure paths are bad. No. High-level adventure paths are really important to an ecosystem of a game, but we have to look at what the game's currently, like where we're at, where our sales are at, where our player numbers are at, what's going to happen, because we don't want to make a product that isn't going to sell well. Like, at the end of the day, we're also a business, right? So a lot of our biggest fans are also in some ways, our worst enemy when it comes to like the voice on the internet, because the things that they want are generally things that are beneficial for them. And, like an ultra player is certainly going to have some high level characters, and they're going to want to have content for those high level characters. When I was in org play, one of the weirdest things that happened when we started with Starfinder Society was we sort of had to balance the level scaling of like, okay, we released like a 1 to 4 scenario, and then a 1 to 4 scenario, and then a 1 to 4 scenario, and then maybe a 3 to 6 scenario. And like we kind of like created this intricate web that got smashed like a dinner plate when people started running adventure paths for credit, because you'd have people who would just burn through everything we put out and then suddenly be like, but I don't have anything to play with my high level character.
Yeah.
And we would have to look at that and go, well, yes, but you're like playing it in a very specific way. And because of that, you're in a very small minority. Now you're like the ideal person for us. And we have to balance this. So like when it comes to like listening to the voices online, it's important to listen to them because, you know, those voices are often the people buying all your books and all of your products, and you want to keep them happy. I mean, I'm that person. Before I worked at Paizo and got all the stuff as an employee, I was like the super fan for everything. I still do that with other things. I'm a Path of Exile addict on computer games, so I'm so
sorry.
I throw them so much money. You have no idea.
Oh my.
And I play Warhammer, so you know, like I'm glad my partner and I have decided we're never having children because that's where the college fund goes.
Well, you have hundreds of children that you get to paint in position on your shelf.
Yes, but all that being said, like those are fans we want to keep happy. But it's actually, like, to me, I think really important that we address the fans we aren't hearing from, or the people who aren't even fans of our game yet, and we have to look at ways to bring them in. And to me, that is very important, and we're looking at ways to address that. I think one of our announcements at PaizoCon is going to really appeal to people who've been in our ecosystem for a while and maybe want to try something a bit different, but like maybe a bit more advanced than your standard thing, maybe going a bit higher level than we've gone before. But like there is a very, very tightrope balancing act, and this is part of the talks, you know, that the team has been having, is like, you know, what's going to be good for this game? What's going to keep this game fresh? What's going to also, you know, keep this brand going? One thing that I'm really passionate about is I really want to see us do more with our brand elements, like have more villains, have more faces, have more things that players react to. That's not just, look, it's Zoe. We want to build up on that. We're really focusing on a lot of that, and it's really exciting.
Well, if my player's reaction to Devastation Arc is any indication, bring back Niran, the time displaced Fae. They hated that guy more than any other bad guy I think we faced, and maybe it was just my playing of him. But yeah, as someone that's just completed Devastation Arc, I don't need another high level AP right now. I'm so excited to get back to level 1 and dive into Horizons of the Vast. So excited. Yeah, you know, just towards what you're saying, I agree. I think it's great that you're taking some time to look at where Starfinder isn't as opposed to where it is. I feel like the folks over on the Pathfinder 2e side have done a good job of balancing like what people are demanding and what doing something that perhaps they weren't going to be able to do in first edition. I just started a playthrough with an old girl team of people that are very excited, teenagers excited about Strength of Thousands.
Nice. Yes.
And that's one that is just so far afield, I feel like, tonally and things like that from what a lot of the other Pathfinder adventure paths are kind of like, and in a good way. It's a breath of fresh air. I am so incredibly stoked as well for a return to Tianjian in Pathfinder 2nd edition and the World Book and the AP that's coming later this year. There's so much stuff on both sides. But for Starfinder, like I said, enhanced for me is like a 9 out of 10. So if you can deliver that book and then give us some more secrets in PaizoCon and Gen Con about what's coming next year, I'd be very excited to. I mean, I can wait. I will wait, but I don't want to wait for
PaizoCon. We'll certainly have some stuff. We're certainly going to have a big announcement, I think, with regards to one of our releases. A slightly smaller one that I think will just have people happy for something we're doing. And then Gen Con, I think, is going to be another, you know, moment for some people where we maybe throw some things out there and have people go, oh, okay.
I'll record my reaction, my live reaction to these. So we'll see if I do say, oh, I'll say it like that if I do. Thirsty, thank you so much for talking with me. I feel like we've gone over what I've promised you we would keep it under for this interview. There's just too much to talk about, and I mean, I do blame you because you should literally
that's my job now.
Of what's coming out. But yeah, no, put out some boring books. We don't want to talk about as much.
It's not that's not happening anymore. Trust me. We got some spicy things brewing.
We have a ton of people this weekend, I mean, throughout the year, but this weekend especially, that are signing up to GM Starfinder Society scenarios, that are meeting players online for the first time, and meeting up with friends, critter manders from our Discord that have played with us for years. For Crittercon 6 this weekend, do you have any parting advice before we sign off for new players and old about how to enjoy themselves at a Starfinder Society table? I know you've sat at many yourself. What's the best way to get into their game this weekend?
I think the best way to get into it is to go into every game with a mentality of, I'm here to play a game, but I do this with Warhammer tournaments. I think it applies to role-playing games. Mm-hmm. I'm not here to just play a game, get my credit, and leave. I want to make 2 new friends at this table. And I think that's what this is all about. This is, community at the end of the day. It's nice to come down and sit and bond over your characters and your stories and these experiences, but also there's human beings who are at the table too. And taking a moment to just get to know some of the people you're playing with and share an anecdote, tell them a bit about yourself. As GMs, give your players like a chance, to introduce themselves, but maybe like ask them a funny question that hey, well, tell everyone your name, your character's name, what your character is, and as a player, what's your favorite food, like that sort of stuff. Because at the end of the day, it's just all about us meeting new people and meeting friends and making friends, which I think is just the core of this hobby. It's what makes us different from competitive games or from just playing online, playing Path of Exile or Diablo, all those sorts of things. So.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so much downtime in tabletop role-playing games where you're not actively rolling dice. I feel like table talk, or in online terms, direct messaging or Discord messaging where you're just sharing memes or having a good time is one of the highlights of, waiting for your turn to come back around or waiting for the GM to finish setting something up. And I cherish that time in both the online community as well as my personal in-person IRL games. What you mentioned, I realize our good friend Seth, who's now on our Patreon Pathfinder 2nd edition podcast, and a good friend online. One of the first things we did together was play a Starfinder Society scenario. I don't think at Crittercon, but it was in the first year of our being a Starfinder Society lodge. And I just really enjoyed his character and how he's playing him. And now 5 years later or whatever, we're best chums, you could say.
Jenny Jarzabski, who I mentioned is the senior developer on our team. I met her at a PaizoCon when both her and I were freelancers. The world works in mysterious ways, and I think some of the times that you spend playing these games just makes lifelong friendships that can just take unexpected turns. At no point in my life did I think I'd be working in this industry. I thought I was going to be trapped in IT my whole life.
Yes, well, you never know where it's going to lead. Obviously, we are very lucky to have you on the Starfinder team. Please don't open any emails from any other competitor ever in the future. Starfinder, I think, is if it's not where you want to be, it's where you need to be, Thirsty. Obviously.
I'll tell you what I told Eric Mona. I think I'll be very happy in this position for a while.
Good.
Because I'm very passionate about Starfinder, and I want to really set a direction for this brand that, with a team that wants to really push the envelope and maybe do some things and break some eggs along the way, and maybe do some things that people haven't seen before, haven't expected, or in some cases have expected but haven't seen yet. So
you heard it here first. Thirsty's going to throw some eggs at Eric Mona's house and make some waves in Starfinder. Well, I'm already excited about what you've done So, I mean, you've already passed the test. Way to go.
And we haven't even talked about the books that I've been outlining.
I was about to say that since you started, they're still like months away. Or all right. Anyway, that is going to do it for this interview. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to talk about before you sign off, or anywhere people can harass you online besides?
I get to okay.
So I get to Discord. Plugs, whatever
my own plug. Okay,
I was about to say we've talked about Paizo enough. If you got something else you want to talk about, this is the time.
Well, it's tangentially related. No, you can find me on all the social medias and stuff at OnCallGM. Twitter and such, and Discords. If you're in them, you might see me in there. I won't give you my number though. You have to find me there yourself on Discord.
You can also the scary search function.
That's right. You can also find me doing GMing on Narrative Declaration, which is a show that I GM for. It's a Pathfinder 2e campaign called Rock Grind, which is a homebrew Dark Soulsy inspired with just a bunch of chucklehead players that I have. And yeah, you can, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/narrative declaration, where I actually write PF2 content and along with some other folks, and we release it every month. Deities for setting new rules, all that kind of stuff. And then we have a show that we do every 2 weeks over on twitch.tv/narrative declaration. And yeah, you get to see me behind the GM screen. And we actually just recently announced we're going to be doing our own Starfinder show. Don't worry, we won't be as cool as Cosmic Crit. We're trust me, we're all a bunch of Yankee Doodles. But
please surpass us. We've sat atop this throne too long. We're like, obviously other Starfinder podcasts will come along to
grown us.
No, people keep listening to this silly show, and I have to keep making it.
That's okay. We'll throw some punches, but yeah, we're figuring that out right now. In fact, we're kind of in the stage of just gathering like our players and whatnot, so that's underway. But yeah, that's the other thing I do, because I have this problem of like not having enough to do apparently with my day job.
I keep making podcasts too, and I hate it.
Yeah. So anyways, that's my plug. But obviously a plug to just the Starfinder team, Jenny, Dustin, and Jessica. They're just rock stars, and they deserve all the credit in the world. And you're going to see some really amazing stuff out of the team in the coming months.
I've obviously been here the entire time Starfinder has been around, and I think the current team, I mean, I'm not blowing smoke or anything, I think it is as strong as it has ever been, including that initial like 4 or 5 person team at the launch. I think you guys, after talking with Jenny and Jessica over the last year or so, I don't have to worry about Starfinder. I'm not up at night being like, oh, what's the future going to hold? You guys obviously have a vision, which I'm very excited to.
Hashtag soon. That'll annoy a lot of people online. There will be awesome announcements. Hashtag soon, everybody. There. You can crucify me online for using that one.
At OnCallGM. Okay. That's going to do it for us. Like I said, if you're listening to this when this episode releases, you can play Starfinder, the role-playing game. Right now, this entire weekend, we have an online Paizo-sanctioned society charity gaming convention. I know that's a lot of words, but we are raising money for Doctors Without Borders. This is our 5th year raising money for that charity. And unlike other conventions, you can actually pay money to the charity directly to Doctors Without Borders to affect your dice rolls and have a lot of fun in something you're not normally allowed to do. You can literally purchase automatic 20s or rerolls or what have you, and the money goes to a great cause. We don't see a cent of it. It is all through their portal. And we do this every year, and it's been more fun each and every year. It got super busy once. I don't know if you remember, there was a global pandemic a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we became very popular with doing an online convention when there's no in-person ones. But this year, we're very excited. We have a lofty goal, which is possible, and there's like a ton of stuff. You can also donate towards prize pools and things of dice and Starfinder books and a lot of other fun gifts. Find that on cosmiccrit.com and all of our links, including to our Discord where you can play. that's going to do it. Once again, thank you, Thirsty, and we'll see you at the next convention. We'll see you at PaizoCon.
That's right. You will.
Hashtag soon better be.
Hashtag soon will start soon. Then. Yeah, it won't be all of it. I swear. All Gen Con 2. Gen Con 2.
All right. We will catch you next time. Thank you guys for listening out there, and good luck at Crittercon 6.
Roll 20s. Bye.
Just buy them. Buy them. I've never rolled them.
You've been listening to Cosmic Crit, an officially licensed partner of Paizo Incorporated. The Starfinder role-playing game and adventure paths are trademarks of Paizo. All Pathfinder and Starfinder images are property of Paizo and are used with permission.